Hey, I'm Kathleen Jasper, and today we're going to be talking about the Fab Five of reading and how we can use our understanding of those skills in order to answer our open response or constructed response questions on our teacher certification exams for elementary education, teaching reading, and any exam that assesses reading skills and how we foster reading skills in students. Let's get started. All right, so I talk a lot about the science of teaching reading and also how we can move through the Fab Five of reading with younger students in order to build their reading skills and make them stronger readers. And this is a big part of teacher certification exams in reading, and not just specifically reading certification exams, but lots of elementary education certification exams, middle school language arts exams. You will see these themes throughout because everyone needs help in reading comprehension, which is the essence of reading. But before we get to reading comprehension, we have a bunch of smaller skills that have to lead us there. So I'm going to quickly go over what the Fab Five of reading is. I'm going to talk about some strategies we can use in each individual skill of the Fab Five reading and how you can apply that to your open responses and constructed responses on the teacher certification exams. I find that even though you read the entire study guide and you've watched all the videos, then when you get to the open response, you draw a blank. And so first things first, I'll tell you that in the study guide that I have, and I will show you all about those study guides in just a second, all of that information can be applied to the open response if you have an open response on your test. So that's the essay portion where you have to write to a specific prompt. And typically the open responses will pull from all of those specific skills. And if you're taking a reading exam, it's going to be phonological and phonemic awareness. That's the first Fab Five of reading. The second is phonics. The third is fluency. The fourth is vocabulary, and the fifth is comprehension. Remember, comprehension is when we can read something and put a picture in our mind, predict what's happening, summarize what's happening. But before we can do all that, there are these incremental skills along the way. All right, so that's the Fab Five. Let me go over them one more time. The first one is phonemic awareness, but I lump phonological awareness in there as well. They're similar skills. They're a little bit different. I'll go over the difference in a second, but it's all about the sounds only in words. We're not looking at the words. We are just talking about the sounds in words. Second is a little more advanced skill, which is going to be phonics. That's where we look at the word, and based on the spelling of the word and the codes in the word, we can sound out the word. All right. So that's number two, phonics. Number three, fluency. Now that we are able to look at a word, now we'll put a bunch of words together and be able to read sentences and paragraphs and maybe even total passages. That's fluency. The fourth is vocabulary. Now that we can read those words, what do they mean? What are those more complex words inside the paragraph or the sentence or wherever we're reading? What do those words mean? And then finally, number five is going to be comprehension. And that's putting it all together and reading a story, a book, understanding what's going on, being able to think critically about the story or passage or whatever we're reading and taking it to that next level. So those are the Fab Five of reading. Now let's break them down. And let me talk about some strategies you can use to build these up so that you can use them in your classroom, but also use them on your certification exams and pass the writing portion. All right, let's talk about the first Fab Five of reading, which is phonemic awareness. Now, I'm going to add phonological awareness. Some reading specialists will disagree with me, but for the sake of teacher certification exams, I'm going to lump these together, okay? The first one, phonemic and phonological awareness, sounds only. You can do this in the dark. You do not have to see the word. So strategies with phonemic and phonological awareness are sound only activities. For example, phonemic awareness. Here's one for phonemic awareness, identifying individual sounds and words. All right, everybody, we're going to listen to the word stick. Everybody say the word stick. And the students say stick. And I say the word stick again. And the students say stick. And I say, how many sounds in the word stick? And the students go, st, 4 sounds. Notice that we break it up by individual sounds. The s, t, I, 4. All right. Now, if I were going to do a phonological awareness activity to help strengthen those skills, I might ask the students to break up the word stick by onset and rhyme. Now, I will have trained my students what is onset and what is rhyme. Well, the onset is the consonant sound in the first part of the word, or the consonant cluster sound. In this case, it's st, right? Those are the two consonant sounds in the word stick, st. And the rhyme, R-I-M-E, is the vowel and consonant at the end of the word, ick. This is a phonological awareness activity because we're breaking up bigger sounds in the word. Phonemic awareness is when we are breaking up individual sounds. Notice I went st, ick. I broke up that consonant cluster in the beginning into two different sounds, st. But when we use phonological awareness, we're breaking up bigger chunks of the word. Onset and rhyme is st, ick. Notice I break it up into two bigger sounds. So those are some ways in which we can strengthen phonological and phonemic awareness. So if you get a question about that on your teacher certification exams, you may have some students struggling with sounds in words. They're having a hard time identifying sounds. You might use those two strategies, identifying individual sounds in words, phonemic awareness, breaking up words with onset and rhyme, phonological awareness. You also might do like a deletion activity where students delete a sound in a word. So for example, I might say the word stick, and students say stick. And I say, delete the first sound off the word stick. And the students would go, tick. Notice that that's phonemic awareness because I broke off the individual sound. That's a deletion activity. Now, I could do a deletion activity with phonological awareness. I could say the word stick, and they say stick, and I say, break the onset off of the word and delete it. And they would go, ick. Notice that they broke off the onset, the st, they took it off, and then they say ick. So deletion, onset and rhyme, individual sounds. Another thing you could do is substitution, a higher level phonemic awareness or phonological awareness skill, because it requires the student to identify a sound in the word and then delete it and substitute in a new sound, which is like 3 or 4 skills going on in the brain. So substitution is actually higher level. So if you're asked a question on the exam about, which type of strategy would you use, you might say something like, I would start off with an easy activity like deletion or identifying the sounds in the words, and then I would move into something more complex, which would be substitution. Notice that you're going for a progression of skills there, and that would show the graders of your essay that the pedagogy and practice of teaching reading. So let me give you an example of substitution. Let's say we have the word math, okay? And I say, all right, everybody say the word math, and they say math, and I say the word math, and they say math, and I say the word math and substitute the ah sound with an ah sound. Notice I didn't say substitute the A for an O because we're not looking at the word, we're listening. It's only listening. I say, substitute the ah sound with an ah sound. And they go, moth. They changed math to moth. Notice the progression of the mind there. They said the word, then they identified the individual sound, ah, which is phonemic awareness, and they substituted that for ah in the right place, in the middle of the word. That's called medial substitution because it's in the middle of the word, which is harder than if I said, say the word math, math, say the word math, math, say the word math. And instead of a sound, we use a p sound. And they would go, math. Notice substituting out the beginning sound is a lot easier than substituting the middle. When we have to do the middle, we kind of have to use a little bit more brain energy, I would say, in terms of substituting those out. So we just went from phonemic and phonological awareness, the basics. What is it? It's sounds only. What can we use to strengthen it? Identifying individual sounds and words, phonemic awareness. breaking up the word in bigger sounds, onset and rhyme, st, ick, phonological awareness, and those strategies on how to strengthen those skills. So keep that in mind. You could use just one of those strategies on your teacher certification exam and you would be fine. You don't need to add 40 different activities. You need one or two. And a lot of times in the open response, it'll say choose 2 activities or choose 1 activity as to working with these students and why it's important. Well, why are these important? Why is it important to strengthen the skills in terms of sounds only in words? Well, because it's a foundational skill of reading, number one. You can't move to phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension until they understand the sounds and words. So it's a foundational skill. And by strengthening these skills in students, they're better able to identify sounds, understand words, and move into those higher order skills in terms of reading and then later writing. So that's really important there. And you might want to mention something like if you choose to do the substitution activity, perhaps substitution, you could say, is a more complex skill. So you move from the easiest skill and move to a more complex to kind of push the students out of their comfort zone there. So that's how you would strengthen phonological and phonemic awareness skills. So let's say we're looking at the word make, and we know that A is long because it's in the middle of the word. It's followed by a consonant and then a silent E. That is a rule in English that we use for a lot of words: make, take, bake, more, other words with long vowel sounds in the middle and the silent E at the end. Okay, that's just a rule. It's a code. We know it when we look at the word. So that's a phonics skill. You might also see a P and an H in a word, like in phone or phonics. And you know the P and the H together is not, it's, how do we know that? Well, it's just a rule in English. We've learned it. When the P and the H are together, it makes a F or an F sound. These are different ways in which we look at codes and words. And so how might we strengthen phonics skills? Well, we might go over the basics of phonics, right? Consonants, vowels, CVCE combinations, consonant, vowel, consonant, which is something like bat, consonant, b, vowel, a, consonant, t, right? When it's a consonant, vowel, consonant, usually I always say usually because there's always some word that doesn't follow the rules, but usually the middle consonant is a short vowel sound, right? We might have the CVC silent E, like in the word make. The consonant is M, the vowel is A, the K is a consonant, and the silent E at the end is the E. Well, we know that that vowel sound is long. That might be one way in which we work on phonics skills. You might also work on vowel teams. Let's say students are having a hard time with vowel teams, the double vowels inside the word that make the long vowel sound. So for example, in the word mean, the E and the A together are a vowel team and they make a long E sound. They say the name of the first vowel, mean. You may use diphthongs, which is a vowel team, but they have a more unique sound. The sound goes from the original sound to a different sound in the word boil. That oi is a diphthong. So these are all ways in which you can strengthen phonics skills. Looking at the word, so vowel consonant patterns, CVC, CVCC, CVC silent E, all of those are outlined in the book. That might be one way in which you strengthen phonics skills. Another way, working on vowel teams, working on syllable combinations, working on diphthongs. All of that will help with phonics. Remember, phonics is looking at the word. So you want to strengthen those skills for students by working on those activities. The next is fluency. So let's say we have students who are fine now in phonological and phonemic awareness, and they're good on phonics. Now we're working on strings of words, and we're working on paragraphs and things like that. And you may have students who are struggling to get through a paragraph. Well, what can we do? Number one strategy in fluency is repeated reading. Read it again, read it again, read it again. Why? It builds up their confidence. They start to see the stuff over and over again, and they're able to move through the text. That confidence is really, really helpful when they are trying to move through the text. So number one, repeated reading. Also, chunking. You might have a larger paragraph and the student is struggling. You might want to just take out a few sentences and have the student read that, read it again until they get really good. Then go to the next, read that, read it again, read it again. That is still repeated reading, but you're kind of chunking out those types of sentences. Another strategy might be choral reading, where we read together in unison. This helps students kind of hear the momentum of people reading around them, and it helps them push them through the text. It could be echo reading. I read, then you read exactly what I just read, and we do that back and forth. These are all fluency activities. And again, you don't need to know every single one of them. Find one or two that you find to be really easy to write to and use that in your constructed response. Now, vocabulary has a couple of ways in which we can help students with vocabulary. First of all, anything in context is good for vocabulary acquisition. So for example, if I'm reading a passage and I get to a word that I don't understand, I want to use context to figure it out. I don't want to go out and use a dictionary, which will pull me out of the reading. Now, that's not to say that dictionaries and also some of the tools we have on our digital devices where we can hold down a word and define it aren't helpful. But to become a really good reader, we kind of have to use context constantly to figure out what's going on within a passage or in a story or whatever. So what we would teach students to do in this situation is read around the word to figure it out. Now, on the exam, you're going to want to use the word context clues. Now, context clues come in all shapes and sizes. It could be the picture next to what we're reading if you're working with little kids, right? So they may look over at the picture, they may see what's going on. That's context, all right? They may also use the semantic cues inside the passage or sentence. So there might be something around the word that gives meaning, semantic meaning to that word. So you might use that. You might use syntax or syntactic cues, which is going to be the grammar, right? So it might be a past tense word. It might be a present tense word. It might have all these different elements of syntax that help you figure out what the word is. You might also use graphophonic cues, which is the way the word is spelled. So you're essentially using phonics in order to make that happen. So those are context clues. So looking at the word, reading around the word, using meaning by the picture or what's happening in the sentence, using syntax, grammar, that'll help lead you to the definition sometimes, or just the spelling, sounding it out and stopping and going, oh, I know what that word is. Those are all ways in which you can help students identify vocabulary words and figure out the meaning as they are reading. Now, beyond that, we need to strengthen vocabulary in everyday classroom activities. So things like interactive word walls, where students come up and they grab a word off the wall and maybe they sit down with it and they discuss it with their shoulder partner, or they share out why they picked the word. They might categorize, do a word sort where they categorize words that are up and coming for our chapter. Perhaps it's a science chapter and you want to make sure students understand certain elements and certain words about what we are going to read. So your word wall that week is all about, cells, okay? And it's got all the different types of cell structures and things like that. Those are ways in which you can use word walls. Remember, they should be interactive, not static. Kids should be able to come and grab a word off the wall. And then also we want to make sure there's a lot of discussion around the words and things like that. That's going to help. Word sorts, anything that is not looking at a definition and writing it down. Back in the day, that's what we used to do. We'd go to the glossary, we'd write the word 3 times, write the definition 3 times. And by sheer repetition, we would sometimes get the word. I'm not saying that those practices do not work, because they do, but interactive word walls and using our critical thinking skills are going to work a lot better. And finally, comprehension. Now, you might get a question about how to strengthen comprehension. My number one go-to for comprehension is metacognition, thinking about our thinking. So when I say thinking about our thinking, we want to identify the processes we are using in order to make comprehension happen. For example, this is my best go-to reading comprehension strategy for metacognition. It's called read aloud, think aloud. So I'm the teacher and I'm going to start my read aloud, think aloud. I'm going to model. Remember, in all of these, modeling is one of the best strategies. So phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, vocab, fluency, phonics. You could always say modeling as one of your strategies, because kids look up at you and you're doing something, they're going to emulate that. So that always works. So with my read aloud, think aloud, I'm going to model my metacognition. So let's say I'm reading and it's a complex science text, and I might get to a point in the text that is complicated and I don't know what it is. There's a word there, and I might say, out loud. I'm saying this out loud to the students. That's a really crazy word. Let me see. I don't know what that word is. Let me read around the word for context. Let me see if I can figure out its meaning. And I go, I still don't really know. Let's see. What is that? Let me look at the picture and the charts over here. Oh, you know what? I think this means, and then, all right, I think that's good. I'm going to keep reading, and we keep reading. Or maybe I stop at the end of a paragraph and I go, let me think if I can just summarize this quickly so I can kind of understand it. And I go through the summarization process. Maybe I stop and predict maybe what's going to happen next. Maybe I'm reading a story and I go, you know what? I bet this person is going to do X, Y, and Z. Let's see if that happens. I am speaking out loud what is happening in my brain. I am showing students how to use their brains, which is going to help them when they're alone with a text trying to figure out what's going on. So my go-to for comprehension is read aloud, think aloud to strengthen metacognition. Now, other strategies could be helping students summarize what they just read. So they read something and then maybe we close the book or put the paper down and we just summarize in 3 or 4 sentences what we just read. Perhaps it's sequencing. We ask students what happened first, second, and third in the story. Perhaps it's prediction. Maybe we just ask students questions about what do you think is going to happen and why. You can't just say, oh, I think a Martian is going to land in the middle of the street. Where in the story gave you that idea? Okay, so always asking students to identify in the text what brought them to that decision or that prediction that they're making. So all of that works. So for comprehension, number 1 is going to be my metacognition strategy, read aloud, think aloud, but you might also do some prediction strategies or summarization techniques or sequencing. All of those help students understand the text and will strengthen their comprehension. All right, so that's it for today. Hopefully you can use those methods when we talk about your teacher certification exam. Remember, everything in the study guide is covered. So if you know the techniques in the study guide, apply that to the writing portion of the exam, because you just answered all the questions, multiple choice questions about phonics, about fluency. You probably have a ton in there about strategies and how to strengthen. When you get to the open response or the constructive response, pull from that information that you know. What are the phonics strategies? What are the vocabulary strategies? What are the comprehension? What are the phonemic awareness strategies? Implement that into your writing and always say why it's important. Why are you doing it? Because it will strengthen metacognition, because it will strengthen decoding skills, because it will strengthen fluency and moving effortlessly through the text. Just make sure you add in there why they're important. And we went through that today. So rewatch this video and tackle those open response questions with ease on your exam. Now, let me show you where to get some of our resources if you want more so that you can study these methods even more. All right, so just head over to KathleenJasper.com. Of course, we have a ton of study guides here. The study guides that I was talking about today are going to be covered in elementary education. So the 5002, the 7002, the 7812, the 5006. So those are all elementary ed, and they are going to be heavy on the reading instruction first and foremost. And then, of course, our teaching reading resources, 5205 and 5206, but also our ESOL. ESOL is going to cover phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, all of that. So we have tons of different study guides for all the different certification exams. Beyond that, we have online courses, which are full of videos and step-by-step instructional tutorials. I go over all the questions in the study guides, things like that. So you can find those for almost every program we have. And of course, if you are a school leader or you're moving into school leadership, we have a ton of resources there. And we just added this teacher interview course and school leadership interview course. This is to help you get the job. I've hired tons of teachers over my years, and I put in all these specific questions you'll be asked, how to answer them, and all of that. Now, we have also just added a bunch of audio courses. So you can see here, I have a teaching reading audio course. This is great if you love podcasts and things like that. I kind of talk you through all of these concepts. I love an audio course. I'm an auditory learner, so this is right up my alley, but it also pairs really well with the study guide. So this is for the praxis teaching reading, and you can see that both of these together, you get a 15% discount on this. Super helpful. And we have audio courses for other things as well. And then beyond that, we have free webinars. Almost every weekend, I conduct a free webinar. Teaching Reading is coming up. So just head over to KathleenJasper.com and click this free webinars tab, and you can attend our webinars. They're free. They come with a mini study guide, and they just help you understand the exams more. All right, that's it. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I wish you luck on your certification exam and your journey in being a reading instructor or an elementary ed or middle school instructor, whatever you're trying to do. If you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, click the like on this particular video, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.